Good morning, everybody. My name is Jody. My husband David John and I have a small farm in the panhandle of North Idaho. These are our stories and adventures, so welcome to Moose Flats Farm. He's going to mow some grass. In our area, we know we're low on calcium in the soil, so we add bone meal in at the time of planting on our zucchinis and all of our squashes. And what that helps with is it helps prevent blossom end rot. Let me get... Because you guys just look a little high. Because there's a couple things that can cause blossom end rot, and that's when it sets the fruit, it starts to grow, and then the end where the blossom was just starts rotting out, hence the name blossom end rot. So one of the culprits could be that your soil is low on calcium, hence the reason we're adding bone meal to the soil, because we know 90% of the time that that's where our issue comes from. Another issue is it didn't get pollinated all the way, or like the blossom sitting like this, and if you're doing an overhead sprinkler, you'll fill the blossom with water because it's in the shape of a cup, and you basically wash the pollen off, so it doesn't get fully pollinated, and then it starts to grow and rots out on you. So we, for the most part, eliminate overhead sprinkling. Everything is done with soaker hoses, except in extreme dire emergencies, and then we'll run an overhead sprinkler. So and another thing, because squash don't really like their roots disturbed, that's what they say, so I did mix up a batch of B1 plant starter. It's supposed to help reduce transplant shock. And another step that I'm going to do is carefully remove them from the pot and gently put them in the holes, trying not to disturb the roots as little as possible, and then watering them in with the transplant starter to reduce the transplant shock. So, as you see, I do have all the plants kind of laid out where they're going to be. So now we just have to go through and dig the holes and get these guys planted. And you can, because you see how on this one it's got this little leggy stem, they can be buried a little deeper. They say they don't grow extra roots, but I already see a little root right here where it's looking to grow, so move our shavings out of the way. And that's one thing nice about having the shavings walkway, is I can put the excess on the walkway and not making a mess. Okay. Okay, that should be a deep enough hole for this guy. Gently pull him out. Place him down in there. And I completely forgot the bone meal on this one. So that one will be our test subject to see what the level of our soil is. Oops. So, gonna go through, repeat the process all the way down, and remember the bone meal this time. So, gonna go to the GoPro, and we'll be back to see what it looks like when I'm done. So that gets the first row planted, and I do have the soaker hose. It is a double on all these rows, so it's just a big loop that connects this bed to 2 or 3 soaker hoses, and they just serpentine through. So that's why I plant in a zigzag pattern, so that way I can place, so they're not fighting as much for nutrients and for the water. But looks good having one done. Just have to get the rest done now. Well guys, that gets all our squashes planted. All of them got bone meal but that first one that I planted. And I can go over and just top dress the top of the soil and water it in. It will do about the same. It's not as good as if it's in the hole right where the roots are. And in case I forgot earlier to explain what bone meal is, it's ground up mostly beef bones, that just release calcium into the soil that the plants can absorb for better blossom. So that's where I'm going to end for right now. The next step will be getting our tomatoes planted and the trick I use on doing the tomatoes. So see you guys here in a couple minutes to plant the tomatoes. There's that better. Sorry about that. And tomatoes are heavy calcium absorbers also, just like the squash, to help set their blossoms and help set fruit. And one of the channels I follow, she was told by an old farmer to plant an egg underneath your tomatoes because they consume the calcium from the egg. And the trick is you want to make sure you crack the egg once you get it in the hole so you don't have a bomb come next fall or next spring when you are cleaning out your tomato beds. So we are going to be adding a tomato in each hole and some more bone meal. And eventually these beds will get to the point that I won't have to be adding the bone meal. They'll have enough calcium just built up in them, hopefully. But we're going to be doing the tomatoes in two different ways, because my early girls are really leggy, so I have them set out so that we can plant them in the trough method and have the heads already starting to turn up. So they're going to be planted basically like that. So we're going to have to remove these lower leaves because you don't want to bury the leaves in the ground when you plant them. And then the other tomatoes, for the most part, are going to be planted straight in the ground like this. So let's get on with getting these guys planted. So I did go through this morning and remove the shavings, so it'll be a little quicker on getting these guys planted in the ground. And as you see, I kind of have them laid out where they're going to be. Maybe a little close, but we'll see what we look like when we're done. Get this one out of the way. Shovel. So we're going to plant this guy first. So the first step is I'm going to get a tray to collect the vegetation. And because this one does have a blossom on it, I am going to remove the blossom because I don't want it to bloom yet. Okay, I've got a trough there, and I did in the back corner where the egg and the potted part is going to be, I did do that a little deeper, and when I get to one that's a little easier, I'll show you. Bone meal. So I'm going to go through and get the rest of these tall ones planted, and then we'll be back with you to show you the other way you can plant your tomatoes. Okay, now this next round of tomatoes, we're going to be just digging a nice deep hole and just planting them straight down like this. And we'll go through the same process where we'll put an egg in the bottom, break it, add some bone meal, and fill the holes back up. So let's get you guys set up so you can see this process. And on this one, you're going to want to dig the hole as deep as you can get it, so you can get as much stalk in the ground. So I've got the hole about 10 inches down. We'll take our egg, drop it down, give it a crack, a little bone meal sprinkle, and because I'm not sure where I have to trim, I'll just trim these couple lower leaves. And just kind of smash them down in there good. And then we'll just backfill around. And repeat the process. Okay, so I've gone through and tied up the tomatoes that are tall enough to be tied up. Show you that here in a second, but I've got these really cool clips that you can have a string go down the center here, and it clamps onto the string to hold the tomatoes up while you're teaching them to trellis, because tomatoes are not natural climbers. They're more of a ground sprawl if you let them go native. And David John got my water system hooked up. I'll show you that here in a second also, but it makes it really easy for watering everything in, because all I have to do is turn the timer on. But let's take a look at the tomatoes that are tied up, and then I'll show you the water system. So as you see here, it's got the string and then the clip tying it up have gone through, and everything that's tall enough is being taught to be trained up. And got the soaker hose going. But over here, we've got this water plumbed to here, and this manifold does each of the 4 different zones in the garden, and then this is just for the main hose. So these 2 beds are on a zone, and he's plumbed it in the ground, and then it comes up, and I just attach a soaker hose to it. No, actually it's the strawberry, this bed, and this bed are on one zone. The back 2 beds and the potato or corn bed is on another zone. This bed is one zone, and this bed over here is another zone. So I'm going to get the rest of these tomatoes planted and be back and show you guys what it looks like when those guys are in. So I've gone through and gotten all of the tomatoes done, tied up, and watered. And I have over here on my cattle panel, I've done my cherry tomatoes and a couple saladettes on them. And with these guys, I'm either just like this one here, hooking the plant, winding it around the cattle panel, or I've got this green stretch tape that I'm using. So I know, sorry, I just got done weed eating and my arms are shaking. Little different way to do your tomatoes, being in the raised beds going up on the trellis, but I figure it's a good place to put the little cherry ones because they're going to be right at base level for easy picking and consuming in the garden itself. So I hope the couple tips and tricks that I've showed on planting squashes and your tomatoes will help. There will be more coming on as the tomatoes grow, because I do heavily prune them, especially once they start setting fruit. So probably in about a month we'll be getting in here and pruning these guys back. So this is where I'm going to end today's video. So I hope you have a good day and a good week. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, because tomorrow we're going to be planting green beans and dry beans in the raised beds and the in-ground gardens behind you guys, and maybe even getting some flowers put in. So bye for now.